Happy New Year, everybody. Or at least it's going to be New Year by the time you see this video because it's actually 20 to 12 in the UK. And I didn't want to enter 2025 without doing one of my infamous, I was about to say famous, probably infamous update videos. More of a recap, actually, a recap of the year to explain exactly what I've been up to and also where do we sit in 2025? What's going on in Ukraine and what does 2025 look like? So strap in. I thought I'd talk for a few minutes about a couple of different subjects and leave you with something very, very positive. So stay tuned for that. In regards to who I am, for those that have never seen this channel before, have never seen any of my videos. My name is Gifford. I'm a British activist, a human rights activist that's fought in Syria, that's fought in Ukraine, and has passionately advocated for more support for Ukraine over the last few years. Not only have I done that on the front line, but I've also written articles, I've appeared in mainstream media. I've also done a lot of fundraising as well, driving crucial equipment to the front line to allow the Ukrainians to take the fight to the Russians. To go into a little bit more detail about myself, obviously how I got started in all of this, way back when the war began in 2022, I initially came out as a humanitarian. So I teamed up with a couple of old friends of mine. We raised something like $100,000. We bought a huge amount of IFAK kits, individual first aid kits, and we went around Western Ukraine training Ukrainian soldiers in battlefield aid. And we're dishing out these IFAK kits. I think we trained something like 1,300, 1,400 people in crucial TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care, and issued each one of those soldiers with an IFAK, which, as you can imagine, way back in 2022, when the war first began, obviously the Ukrainians were under a lot of pressure and they needed as much support as they could get. And there was a lot of equipment deficiencies, to say the least. So anyway, that was the first project I got involved with. But then with the massacres in Bucha and Irpin and other places in Ukraine, when I got to appreciate and truly love the Ukrainian people, when I got to realize the stakes of this conflict and how this is very much the world's conflict, or the Western world certainly's conflict, and that there is a dreadful risk that if Russia were to take Ukraine, then this war would come to us. And with those stakes being so high, I decided to join up. So I served for 2 years with the 131st Separate Reconnaissance Battalion, joining at the end of 2022. And I left my time in Ukraine on the ground fighting with the 131st just before Christmas last year. So that was a big time for me. My dad was very unwell at the time. I rushed back to spend time with him. I got back to him just as he was in the hospital. And around this time, around New Year's Day, we got him back on New Year's, and we counted in the New Year's with him. And towards the end of the month, towards the end of January, he sadly passed away. Since then, I've been focusing on lots of other stuff, but I'll come on to that in a second. So I just wanted to recap first who I am, but also what's going on in Ukraine. Let's recap the year, because if you remember correctly, we started the year with a bit of difficulty. The Americans very quickly stopped the military aid going to Ukraine. The Russians began counterattacking after the very difficult summer that we had. I fought in the summer offensive of 2023, and my battalion first was posted in the south in Kherson, and where we were fighting along the river, and then we were posted in Liman, the forests in the far east of the country, where as the Ukrainians pushed in the south, in sort of Zaporizhia way, that sort of direction, the Russians were counterattacking in our area. So we were switched with a Marine brigade, and we went north. And as I said, that's where I ended my time. So with the Russians counterattacking in 2024 as well, with the huge amount of pressure that the Ukrainians were finding themselves in, there was suddenly in the early part of 2024, the early part of this year, a sort of terrible shell deficit. There's always been a shell deficit in Ukraine, but it was particularly felt at the beginning of 2024 when the Americans stopped that aid. That aid did start again, but it stopped at a very crucial time, because the Russians were able to make some gains, some tactical gains, which did change the dynamics on certain fronts, and it put the Ukrainians under a lot of pressure. And that's one of the big shames of this year, is that we missed a lot of opportunities at the beginning of the year to hold that line and to really push the Russians back. So that was a failure not of Ukraine, but of the international community. But the Ukrainians adapted, they innovated. They attacked in Kursk, where they actually invaded Russia for the first time since the Second World War. So the Ukrainians opened up a new front on Russian territory. And for the first time, I think Vladimir Putin realized how difficult, and the Russian people as well, how difficult, how much this war was starting to impact them. They said this war would be over in 3 days. Suddenly, they've got Ukrainian soldiers marching across their border. So the dynamics of the war changed, and we went from being under a deep assault at the beginning of the year with an artillery shortage and with equipment from the West being delayed, to suddenly the conversation turning to, okay, we've taken the fight to Russia, what next? And that goes hand in hand with the economic stagnation in Russia as well. I think that's one of the most crucial things of this year, is that the Ukrainians, although there has been some, as I said, limited tactical gains by Russia that have changed the dynamics in some areas, in the broader scheme of things, Ukraine hasn't fallen. Ukraine is still strong. Ukraine is still training troops. It's still getting equipment from abroad, and it's still adapting, and it's still being innovative. So if they can continue on doing that, and actually the point I was going to make is that they held the line and they stopped the Russians from making any significant gains. What it's done is it's bought time. And the economic stagnation that Russia is experiencing right now is going to get worse in 2025. In 2025, their reserves, their currency reserves are going to run out. Their equipment reserves are going to run out as well. And the hyperinflation and the lack of confidence in the Russian economy more broadly are really going to start taking a toll. And I really think that 2025 is going to be a year of change for Ukraine. So it's been particularly special, really, to see that happen, and also to take a part in it, because although I left to spend time with my family at the beginning of the year, I can actually announce to you all now that I raised this year $110,000 for Ukrainian soldiers on the front line. That was for people like the 409th, the 8th Separate Special Operations Regiment, the 131st Regiment, which is obviously my one, and last but not least, the Vicor group as well. This is the team, the all-foreigner team in the 409th that served with me in the 131st, that are doing such damage on the front line in not just eastern Ukraine, but also within Russia. But more on that in a second. So you guys were amazing. We fundraised for everything from UAVs, which both air and ground, new vehicles, cars and quads. We've done scopes, in particular thermal scopes. Can you remember that big fundraiser that we did for, I think it was the 8th, for that thermal scope for their sniper rifles? A lot, obviously, medical supplies, you name it, we've bought it this year, and we've got it to some of the best, most elite Ukrainian units who are doing the most damage on the front line against the Russians. And I mean, that support has been so crucial. It has saved lives. It has stopped the Russian assaults in many areas. And it's all down to you guys, because you guys have supported me this whole way. You've supported the teams on the ground, and it's just inspiring to have spoken to many of you over the last year, to have interacted with you on Twitter and other places. And I just want to say thank you. And 2025 is going to be a real year for both of us. In regards to Vicor Group, I mean, what more can I say? These are great guys, a team of international volunteers, absolutely decimating the Russian lines. They've released some amazing footage over the last year. Some of my highlights have been the footage, the video of the Russian cowering under the shield. Excuse me, under the shield that he was using to drag his kit to the front line. Also, the attack on Kursk, where the team was one of the first teams to enter the Russian territory. This is the first invading force since the Second World War. So the Russians, the Ukrainians obviously targeted certain infrastructure before that attack. Everything from communications to obviously their reconnaissance drones had already identified crucial targets, and Vical Group was very much involved with hitting those early targets and making a difference. So guys, you've done amazing, and I just want to reach out to you guys and say well done for 2024, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about you guys in 2025 and sharing more of your footage. Just today they showed me a great video of them blowing up a T-80 tank. This is a Russian tank that was assaulting Ukrainian positions. Obviously, it got attacked by the Ukrainians, and the team destroyed it with a drone, a $500 FPV drone, and it was titled underneath. It said "Mesa says hi." Just as I've got a picture and a video of the drone crashing into this vehicle with that underneath. So that's a particularly special thing to see. In fact, that was actually done months ago, and they do not share enough of their videos. I'm going to try and urge them to keep going. They don't spend much time online. When they do, they're always sharing great Twitter threads, informing people what life is like on the front line. So I'll share a link to their page below. So give them a follow. They're a great team. One thing I did want to say about that is the T-80 is worth 4.5 million US dollars. It was an amazing bit of kit for the Russians. It's now lost to a Ukrainian drone worth $500. The money that we have donated, that $110,000 over the last year, bought hundreds of FPV drones that have targeted things like that T-80 that is worth 4.5 million. If you take all of the funds that we raised for this year, it's a drop in the ocean compared to just one vehicle that the guys have blown up this year. So I think when you add it all together, not just this year, but last year as well, we are entering the sort of low tens of millions of dollars worth of kit destroyed. And obviously many, many Russian soldiers' lives lost as well. The less I say about that, perhaps the better. But anyway, I suppose I'll just end this video because I've been talking for 12 minutes, just simply with a message of hope that that the Russian economy can't keep going as it has in the past. The Russian army can't keep taking the terrible losses that it has. And if we can get the West, Britain, America, etc., to keep supporting Ukraine, keep giving them what they ask for, this war will end, and it will end with a Ukrainian victory. And one thing, again, that I want you all to take away is that you guys are not hopeless bystanders. You guys have donated a lot of money to Ukraine. You guys have supported Ukraine from the very beginning. And you guys are a crucial resource in this battle, because there is a disinformation war going on right now online, which has taken its toll. You've seen the progress that the sort of Putin apologists have made in America, in American elections, American politics more broadly. So that propaganda war we have taken casualties. So it's vital that we keep pushing hard and we keep supporting Ukraine, because this war affects us all. But anyway, guys, I hope that's a good update. More of those very soon. And yeah, speak to you soon.